Hi, everyone, and welcome to Off the Record, the sports podcast of breaking news, hard opinion, and a little bit of gibber. I'm Andrew Webster from The Australian, and I'm joined by my partner in crime, Phil Rothfield from the Daily Telly. G'day, Buzz.
Hello, Webby. Great to be feeling well again, isn't it? You know, the COVID dragged on a little bit, but how am I sounding? You know, like I've got that great media voice. Not quite Rabs, but, you know.
You could be Rabs. You could be Rabs.
No, it really is. I was crook there for a couple of weeks.
I've still got to feel like I've got it a bit.
Do you?
COVID or anger.
You're on 360. You're back making a comeback too. Good on you.
Look out. Look out. Look out, Crawls. I'm after you. Coming up on the show today, Buzz tells us what's going on with Mark Nawaqanitawase.
Well done.
Got it. We look at why the biggest problem for the Perth Bears is the self-interest of rival clubs and what's doing at Manly. And also, we're going to have a very special war story segment where we're going to talk about the great Mark Hughes ahead of Beanie for Bean Cancer round. Now, before...
For brain cancer. What did you say? Beanie
for brain cancer round.
I don't think you did.
What did I say?
I don't know. But you didn't spit it out right.
Okay, sorry, mate. We've got to do a plug for Code Sports. You can get an annual subscription to Australia's best sports website for $49 a year. That features Australia's best sports journalism. You can head to codesports.com.au/OTR to get the special discount. Buzz, who's your champ of the week?
My champ of the week is way off course. It's the lady who's going to sing the national anthem at State of Origin on Wednesday week, a lady called Erin Mortimer, daughter of the great Stephen Turvey Mortimer, 40 years on from the 1985 Classic at the Sydney Cricket Ground when Turvey sank to his knees, and that famous whole photo of when New South Wales won its first series. And that Erin is singing. Dad's not well, as we all know. He's suffering from quite severe dementia. Hopefully Turvey will be watching the game on TV. Hopefully New South Wales can repeat what he did all those years ago. But I just think it's a really lovely touch. Erin is an accomplished singer. She's been in the business for a long period of time, and you know, we wrap the NRL, you know, and there's been a bit of controversy, hasn't there, with pre-game entertainment and all that. I just think they've hit a really nice note here.
For sure. No pun intended. My champ's the NBA. I love the NBA. They just had one of the most incredible final series in a long time. I know they sort of seem to think over in the States that it was a boring series. I thought it was phenomenal. Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Indiana Pacers in Game 7. Which surprised a lot of people. They thought it'd be a clean sweep. The Pacers lost to Reese Halliburton with a ruptured Achilles in the first quarter.
Is that as far as it can go, 7 games?
That's it. Seven's it, the best of 7. And, yeah, it was the first win for the Thunder since relocating from Seattle many years ago. So it was
it's huge in America, isn't it? Is it number 2 to NFL?
Yes.
Or is it
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Buzz, what's your chump?
I'm going to do the Brisbane Broncos as my chump, and I'll tell you why. I don't like their treatment of Selwyn Cobbo. I think he's a very, very special athlete and an Indigenous fella from the bush in Queensland who has had some struggles in recent times and hasn't been considered for selection in the side, so much so that he's been forced to come to Sydney and look around at other options. Look, the fact is they signed Ben Hunt for 2 years at a very late stage of his career. They've just extended Adam Reynolds for a year. They didn't think he'd play. And this has forced Selwyn out. And I just don't think it sits too well.
Where do you think he'll end up?
Well, he came down to St George. He's after too much money. St George wanted him this year. Whether something will happen the next week or not before June 30, I doubt it. So he'll probably stay at the Broncos, but he's been forced out, Webby. The Broncos have got $300K left for him. He considers himself. They were asking $600, St George, too much. I think he's $450, $500.
Yeah.
And
$500's a reasonable price for a player like Cobbo.
Yeah, and look, you know, the Broncos are always going to be a tight cap fit with Carrigan and with Reynolds and with Payne Haas and Reece Walsh, probably their highest paid player. They're always, and Katoni Staggs just extend. They're going to be a tough squeeze. They always are. But this guy is a very, very special player at that club, an Origin player, and I'm disappointed he's leaving for a couple of old blokes.
I could see him going to the Dragons and having a sterling career.
Well, I hope he does.
Me too, as a Dragon supporter. You know who my chump is?
Who?
I got chumps. Donald Trump and Ayatollah Khomeini for bombing the shit out of the Middle East. The great Sydney race caller, Darren Flindell, is in Qatar at the moment. He's watching missiles fly over his hotel.
Yeah.
We need the great man to be okay because he's got the Everest to call later this year.
Yeah.
So if Donald and the Ayatollah can just sort it out, that'd be great.
I heard him on Mark Levy's show today.
And also, can we get to Origin 3 before we start up World War 3?
Yeah.
I just think that would be pretty handy.
I think you'll find there's been a ceasefire, Webby, and I hope it's a permanent one.
For 12 hours.
Yeah.
Who knows with the Don?
But I heard him on Mark Levy's show on GB as I was driving in, and he was calling the missiles, and it sounded like a race. Hasn't he got an iconic voice now?
Oh, I love it. Oh, when he called Chautauqua to those victories in the TJ Smith, I've actually interviewed him about it. He goes, boom, Chautauqua. He's like, he gets, like all race callers, they get knocked. You know, Pete, you have your favourites. Matt Hill's obviously sort of the gold standard in Melbourne, but I love Darren Flindell. I think he's got a really distinctive and different race calling voice.
The one thing that was no surprise, he was describing where he was at the time these missiles were coming over. He was in a rooftop bar.
I know. I know. Yeah, I've actually run into him at a rooftop bar in Hong Kong.
He does enjoy a frothy.
He does. Righto. You heard it here first, Buzz. That man we mentioned earlier, Mark Nawaqanitawase, who's been a revelation for the Roosters this season. It looked like he was all set to re-sign at the Roosters, didn't it? But he did media this week and left the door ajar for a return to rugby union, possibly for the Wallabies in the 2027 World Cup. What are you hearing, Buzzy?
Well, I've spoken to his manager, Andrew Fairburn, a couple of times in the last 7 days in regards to his future. And the reason I've rung him twice is the mail is very, very strong that he'll see out this year at the Roosters. He'll play the following year at the Roosters, and then he'll switch over back to rugby union.
Wow.
Reason being, I'm not saying, I'm just telling you what the mail is. Mate, how often do you get a home World Cup?
That's right.
And that has massive appeal. And his manager, though, was very, very non-committal when I spoke to him. All the agents are scared of Nick Politis and don't want to admit that, there is a slight chance this rugby and the World Cup's in the back of his mind. All he would say is that he's enjoying his rugby league. His quotes were so predictable that he's enjoying rugby league, he's learning rugby league, he is making mistakes, which we've all seen under the high ball. But the thing is, in November, he's free to chat to other organisations because it's 12 months before his contract's up. And not that Australia really, they've got Joseph Suaalii, but this guy would be a marketing machine.
He would. They do have some outside backs, the Wallabies.
Yeah, this guy's special though, mate.
He is. But they've got Jordan Suaalii, Tom Wright, Kellaway. He's a special player. I agree.
I'm trying to wrap rugby here. You criticise me all the time when I blow up about the ticket prices and things like that. I think at a World Cup he would be even more add to that Australian side.
I'm just saying there's players in front of him.
But it'll be interesting, Webby, because his manager won't do an Isaac Moses. He won't backdoor the Roosters. He'll keep Nick informed of every move because he's got so much respect for the Roosters and their chairman.
Are you saying that managers are scared of Nick Politis?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a few journos too that I know of. But,
are you?
No. Do I look like it?
Are you getting you and Nick okay at the moment?
Have I ever seemed like it?
No. Particularly with your stadium coverage last week.
Yeah, sorry for being a journalist. You should try it sometime. Let's jump to the news of the week. You had a very interesting story, Buzzy, in the Daily Telegraph yesterday about Clint Newton, the RLPA CEO, making a really interesting plea to the NRL bosses about salary cap exemptions or help for the Perth Bears and PNG.
Yes.
He made a lot of sense, Clint Newton. I thought and I've actually discussed this issue with the great Wayne Bennett, and
What do you say?
he agrees. He says we have to be we can't hurt the integrity of the competition, but we also need to be aware that these are two new clubs coming in.
And the big difference is, Webby, with rugby league expansion, when we went to the Dolphins, we went into what was already a rugby league heartland and massive junior rugby league there. They own a massive they had money, they had juniors, they had Wayne Bennett, and they had Peter O'Sullivan.
They had history.
And great history, as you're talking about. This is a completely different operation we're about to launch in Perth. If rugby league's to be a truly national game from seaboard to seaboard, we need a strong Perth Bears from the word go. Now, the only way to ensure they are going to get talent for a competitive roster is to give them a leg up. And I really hope that all the self-interests among the other 17 clubs can be put aside just this once, because the more successful Perth are in the long term is going to be so beneficial to the game.
What about PNG though? But that's still in play, isn't it? That they're going to be tax-free dollars.
Yeah, so I'm
that
not
works
that concerned because
about PNG.
No, because they've got the tax-free dollars.
I'm worried about Perth too. I just think it's going to be rushed in so much, and the difference for rugby league is that they don't have a draft. So when GWS came into the comp, apart from having a 3-year preparation for it and playing in different leagues before they came in the 2012 draft, they had the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th, and 15th
is that right?
draft picks and salary cap exemptions.
Yeah. Is that right?
100%.
Wow.
So, and this is why I've been saying all along that I'm concerned about Perth being rushed in as they are, is because they've got Mouse in place. They've never got Ben Gardner, an assistant coach, but they've got Anthony DeSegli, who he's still got to prove himself as an NRL administrator. But it's now 4 months until they have to start contracting. It's not a lot of time, Buzz.
No. The thing I reckon the AFL do a lot better than us is the whole of game approach among the clubs. I think I've said this here before. The West Coast Eagles and Richmond make in excess of a turnover of $100 million a year. Now, the best rugby league clubs, the Broncos, with 80. Clubs like the Suns and the GWS Giants make bugger all. So when they're handing out grants, the AFL give those two giants I mentioned $15 million each. And more than double that goes to the Suns and goes to GWS Giants. And it's staggered all the way through their competition on a user needs basis. With the NRL, everyone gets about 19 mil. That's what they get all up. They get about 5 million over the salary.
That's
cap.
right.
And even when Papua New Guinea came into the comp and Albo put his 600 mil in, all the clubs were interested in was not expansion.
How much they were going to get each.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Same as Perth.
But you know why the NRL come to the party and give them a lot of money, give them all a couple of... It buys their silence. So they can't blow up. But what are the clubs going to do with that money? Are the Broncos going to spend another $400,000 to change their logo with an international global brand? Are they going to pay Grant Williams, the best spin doctor in Australia, another $300,000-400,000 a year to get their image right? Like, this is money that's just being
burnt
down the sewer, Webby.
I hear you, Buzz. The way that a lot of rugby league clubs spend money like they're COVID buying, the way that they burn through it, the way that they sack coaches and pay out coaches, and
people think
it's pretty reckless spending with annual grant money.
People think just because the salary cap's there that everyone spends the same, but they actually don't. The Canterbury Bulldogs football department costs are way in excess
Well,
of others.
That's
And you
right.
start with Gus's salary and then you put the team around. I know there's a soft cap, but look at the junior league and the money and good on them. You know, they're coming through and they've got the Canterbury Leagues, which pumps money out from pokies.
All the and they've got Arthur Laundy's money
Yes.
as well. But I think that's why Canterbury have been so successful, because Gus just knows that it costs money. Success costs money.
Yeah.
And he's thrown it so he's got the Laundies and the Leagues Club. Mainly I think it's I wrote about this when I did the big piece on Gus earlier this year. I think they're like the other clubs tell me that they reckon it's about $5 million a year into junior development, which is a hell of a lot.
Yeah. And they've got a massive junior. So does Parramatta, so does Penrith, so does Cronulla. Now, what'll happen, Perth don't have those. North Sydney don't have many juniors.
No,
They
that's right.
need a leg up. But you know what? It should be a 5-year plan. It should be. They can have $2 million over the salary cap. I like the other exemptions. If you play in Melbourne, your parents live in Queensland, you want to fly them down for a game, that's salary cap. That's putting the cap. There need to be travel exemptions. There need to be living away from home allowances. You know, the rental market in Perth with all the miners and you know it's the most expensive in Australia?
Yeah, I heard that.
And these allowances need to come into it.
You know,
I really want them to be going gangbusters from the start.
Yeah, I agree, but I just think they should have put it back another year. The other thing that with Perth, I didn't go over to Origin too, but a lot of former players that I know who did for their media commitments came back and said, "I'd hate to be doing that road trip every second week."
Yeah.
That's going to be an issue.
Well, it happens in the AFL. It happens in basketball.
It
It
does.
happens in the A-League.
But you need to find it. It's going to
But
take time. It's going to
isn't
take time to
your
get
man-
into the groove of it.
Isn't
you know?
your man PBL talking about getting a jet?
My man.
Isn't he talking about getting a jet?
I don't talk to the bloke, so you tell me.
I don't know. I got to sort that out.
You're better connected
I
than
can't
me.
have my sidekick, my man Webby, not
Not talking to the
board with
top
PBL.
brass.
No, I must repair that feud.
Yeah, well,
Is it a fully blown feud, or you go in and out with?
it's pretty bad. This one.
You never give anyone life.
This one's
You
pretty.
don't.
This one's pretty close.
No.
Hey, when I got screwed over like I did. Anyway, that's another story for another time. Speaking of
This is not the appropriate place.
Hey, we're off the
be.
record.
Choose
all right.
your hard work, seriously. I reckon, how many podcasts have we done?
Too many.
Yeah.
What?
You're a difficult person sometimes.
Oh, coming from you.
You can be particularly difficult.
No, it's called having ethics. You of all people talking
you're a
about
gibber,
you of
Webby.
all people talking about being difficult.
You are a gibber.
Okay, speaking of gibberish, Manly.
I'll get PBL in this seat
We should have him here.
by the end of the year. I'll convince him.
Good.
But only
He
if
wouldn't
you-
be. He wouldn't be game.
But only if you're. So with people like PVL, you got to show respect,
Yeah, respect's a two-way street, Buzz.
manners, Andrew.
Respect's,
Manners.
I've shown him many manners over the years.
Yeah.
Many manners. Is that the right way to say it? Lots of manners. Okay, Manly. Another week, another drama at Brookvale.
Yeah.
Turbo has been turfed from fullback to
Yeah.
centre for Lehigh Hopewate. I think it's a good move. I
don't.
I think at the moment it is.
Is it?
Yeah. Why don't you like it?
Be like the head of the Australian coming to you and said, "I'm moving you as my main columnist."
That's the dumbest
Yeah.
analogy I've ever
It's
heard.
not dumb,
He's not
it's
writing
not.
columns, Buzz. He's playing football.
but it's a demotion.
Well,
He is an all-time legend.
I'm aware of what he's done.
He's an all-time. Billy Slater's
Do you
the
think he's
best
going
I've
good?
seen.
Do you think he's going good?
No, he's not going great.
No.
But do you think Cherry Evans is going good?
No. Well, where are you going to move Cherry
Do you
Evans?
think Jake's going
Well,
good?
where are you going to move Cherry Evans?
I don't know.
We can go to hooker.
I don't know, Webby. I think it's particularly disrespectful the way that he's been treated.
Yeah, no one's
Called
bigger-
him into a 7-minute meeting and saying the fullback, an all-time legend of that club, your career's over as a fullback or temporarily, whatever it is.
He's struggling.
Did he have a conversation?
It
Did
sounds
he
like
get
it.
his buy-in?
He said.
Turbo's not happy about you.
No, I know.
that.
I can tell he's not happy about it. When I read his comments in black and white this morning, I went, "Oh no, he seems all right about it." And then I looked at the vision. He's not happy about it.
It's like the Australian cricket team when Steve Smith or someone goes through a bad patch. You don't just piss them off. You don't just...
Well, he's not getting dropped. He's just getting moved.
Yeah.
I just think his body's not where it needs to be, you know?
Yeah, look...
And I say that as a massive Turbo
I
fan.
can understand that, but I think a man of his standing in rugby league has a gold pass, right? And with that pass, it entitles you to be treated with a bit more respect than what he has been this last week.
Okay, if it hasn't been handled, I think it's the right move positionally
I
at
read
the
about
moment.
it in the media.
But
I read about it.
I think it's the right move in terms of the team, but whether it's been done correctly or not, unless we hear it from Turbo's mouth, then it's a bit hard to judge.
Look, I know he's not playing well. He says he's fit. They play the West Tigers. They play South. That entire club, I believe, have a top 4 roster. And at the way they're going, they don't look like making the top 8. And I think the coach is the one now who's under most pressure.
Okay, let's get to that because the whole – I can't wrap my ugly head around the whole succession story. Sorry, Buzzer's just taking a suck of his little bottle of Sprite there. How's that?
Sprite.
Oh, sorry, Diet Sprite.
Yeah.
With a little bit of vodka.
No vodka.
I find this whole succession plan gibber hard to wrap my head around. So Manly have suggested, well, he sort of backed away from a Mestrov at this media opportunity yesterday, away from it, but said it's been informal discussions about Anthony Seibold going into the GM of football job in 27 and Michael Ennis, his assistant, coming in. And I say this with great respect to about Anthony. He's got a 47% winning percentage in the NRL. He made a preliminary with South in his first year in 18. He
Dally-M Coach of the Year.
Yeah. Got the Broncos to 8th in his first season there, and then they got whacked by Parramatta in the first week of the finals. Wooden Spoon the following year. Then he got to Manly, didn't make the finals. They got to the second week of the semis last year, and this year they're in 10th. Like, he's got a lot to prove as a coach before he can go into a GM of football role. Is that correct?
Yeah. Look, I think he's a pretty solid all-round rugby league type. He's a lot different to the Haslers and the Bennetts, and in that he's had all this uni training. Didn't he go to Oxford? He went to Harvard. He's worked for Eddie Jones. He's knocked around rugby players. So he's obviously quite an intelligent dude around a sporting franchise.
He didn't look too intelligent when he fell asleep at Macca's that time.
No, he didn't.
But
Yeah.
hey, we've all
I
done.
published that photo.
Did you?
Yes.
That's very tawdry.
I rang him and told him.
We've all fallen asleep at Macca's, Buzz.
Yeah, we have.
Have you fallen asleep at Macca's?
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember. Probably
That's a
have.
yes.
I probably have. But what I'm saying is he is an intelligent dude, but his coaching results are not there.
Not at the moment.
And, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him in a sort of head of football role. I wouldn't mind seeing him in the head of football role. Something like, look, he's not going to be Gus Gould. He's not going to be Frank Panisi. But as I said, he's had a lot of experience. And the reason I say this, I'm a Mick Ennis fan. I think he's a really, really knowledgeable rugby league guy. He's worked under Ricky Stewart. He's worked under Brad Arthur. Now he's worked under Seibold. But time will tell. Look, Manly need to make changes.
They do. They do. I'm just not. I noticed that Tony Mestrov, the CEO, backed away from him, saying that Siebes was. He's the coach at this point.
Yeah,
he
but
said.
Messi,
He said I worded that wrongly.
Messi told me DCE. He's on record as apologising for lying. He told me there was DCE was all sweet 2 weeks before he walked out.
I'm shocked and appalled that someone in rugby league will not tell the truth.
No, well, see, and this is, he gave Cherry Evans a commitment. He gave him his word that they would say nothing. That was an agreement they had. So when I rang, he had to lie to me.
Okay, I get it. We've had this conversation before.
Yes.
I'm all about the truth, man. Hey, Todd Payton, another coach under pressure.
He's lucky he's 2,000 kilometres away.
Why do you think if
And
he was
not
in Sydney,
with the Sydney Daily Telegraph as his
with
hometown,
Philip Rothfield breathing down his neck?
and Michael Chamis and Karayanis and Reed and Webster and Ritchie and Karayanis. Mate, it gets.
I hope that wasn't in rank. That wasn't in order.
No, it wasn't in order whatsoever. And if I've missed someone, my apologies.
Weidler.
I mentioned Weidler and David Ricciardo and Fatima Cadeau and Adrian Prezenko and I'm a Pengelly fan too.
Oh, yeah.
Can write Pengelly. Can.
He can. Good
What
writer.
were we gibbering about? Before you took me down the wrong street.
Todd Payton.
Todd Payton.
Todd Payton, luckily he's in Townsville.
Well, the Townsville Bulletin.
They're not whacking him that hard.
Well, the Townsville Bulletin's a very, very good regional newspaper up north. But they don't carry as much clout as the general rugby league media in that they have to be seen to supporting the Cowboys when as much as they possibly can. And their last three results, 138 points they've conceded, is 46 points a game, Webby, including 56 against the Dolphins. And they have the worst for and against in the competition now.
You know, it all went wrong for me with Todd. I love Todd Payton. I think he's. I don't know Todd
Why?
because he's so direct. I love just how how honest he is, and I reckon that's probably not doesn't help him in many ways. And I've actually talked to him about this. He said, the way that he addressed the group was an issue for the senior players, and they fronted him midway through last year about it. When he did the Dally M Coach of the Year speech,
He dragged her on a bit.
A bit.
Yeah.
I think it only just finished.
Yeah.
I remember I wasn't there. I was texting Abdo going, mate, can you get involved here and cut this short? He's obviously a very good coach. Like what he did in 22 was very, very good. But
he could have gone the Warriors. Remember, he knocked back the Warriors to go up to.
That's right.
Go up to the Cowboys.
I will say this: they made the second. They made, I know they're two big losses. It's during Origin. They're a couple of points outside the 8. We've still got a bit to go in this season. And they made the second week of the finals last year. Like, I mean, I suppose
they've won one from 7, Webby.
I get a buzz, but if you pulled the trigger on him, I think his biggest problem is if you did pull the trigger on him, he's got Josh Hannay there ready to go.
Yes.
So that's his biggest problem.
When I say they won 1 from 7, that was the comeback game of the West Tigers. Remember, they nearly nailed them at the end, and it was a bit of controversy around that finish. And I think you'll find they've got 5 or 6 Origin players, which is as many as any other club, and it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
And the pressure should be on Todd Payton. I know he's had success, and I know you like, his mannerisms and the way he's so direct and sharp, and all his comments, his press conference, you're right, is always a good listen, and a lot of coaches hold back there. He doesn't. But he's under pressure. Rugby league, as you know, I've said it so many times, 30 coaches sacked last 10 years, 3 a year. And there's Benji, and there's Desi, and there's Todd Payton, and there's who else? There's pressure. Adam O'Brien.
Flano.
Oh, I don't think Flano's under pressure.
No, of course not.
Hey?
Of course not.
Well, what are you suggesting? No.
I'm kidding.
You are.
Hey, because I know it's a sore point. I knew you'd react like that. That's why I said it. That's why I said it.
Yeah, but what you do in these situations, you look at the rosters at the beginning of the year and an expectation of where they'll finish on the table.
Yeah.
Now, I looked at that roster he had and I thought they'd be bottom 4. I looked at Todd Payton's roster and thought they'd be top 8.
Yeah. Flano's halfway through his second year. I get it.
Yeah.
I was just winding you up. And you know what? You just took the bait. Right, let's...
You're an idiot.
Don't you start. I've had enough
War Story, this is your turn.
Well, this is going to be both of ours. I just think our great mate Mark Hughes, it's the Beanie for Brain Cancer round.
Yep.
This is the 12th year of it. It's made over $30 million from the sale of $1.2 million beanies. the reason why I want to bring it up is that I actually interviewed Mark Hughes in his parents' kitchen in 1997 before he made his first grade debut for the
Did
Knights. Yeah, so I've known Booze for a long, long time, and
right.
to see him, he was the bloke who his Knights teammates used to say had shoulders like a brown snake.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
never an explosive
No.
player, but he was just a good kid,
player.
good kid from the coalfields who got the best out of his body and his
One
career.
of those guys just great to have around a footy club.
Very
Everyone
much
loved
so.
him.
Very much so. I interviewed him and he got brain cancer in 2013. It was a stage 3 brain cancer, which isn't great. He got through it. His former teammates rallied around him. There's a great story about how Joey would drive up on a Friday night football. He'd drive from Sydney to John Hunter Hospital, sit with him for a couple of hours and then go and do the footy at Penrith on a Friday night. I love how all those Knights old boys rally around each other. One of the great Mark Hughes stories is from 1997 when they won that grand final. And him and Paul Harrigan were the last two men standing
Is that right?
at the Empire Hotel. Do you remember the Empire Hotel on Hunter
Newcastle.
Street?
Yeah,
That's where all the Desperates and the Wharfies and the bikies used to go. And his chief asleep on a stool up against the shithouse door, and no one could get in. And because it was chief, it was the grand final winning captain. No one wanted to say anything. And Booze goes, "That might be enough for us." And he picked up the 112 kilo Paul Harrigan and threw him over his shoulder and walked out of the pub. And he said they formed a guard of honour
Oh, really?
out the door and cheering. They walked out on the street and fell over.
Wow.
And he's a good man, the great Mark Hughes.
Yeah, isn't it a fantastic charity? And, we have the McGrath Foundation, which is huge on, the new year. But this is rugby league's, marquee fundraiser as far as I'm concerned. And
They put down their weapons. We put down our weapons for a week, Buzz.
We do, and everyone's on board. And I'll tell you who's very, very much responsible for it, who worked very closely with Mark Hughes, is a guy called Matty Callender. And Matty, son of Kenny, brother of Richie, what a great human being. He was the boss of rugby league at Channel 9. You probably worked for him at Cross there.
Yeah, I did.
And look, I don't have any relationship at all with Channel 9 now, but in Matty's days I did. He was a terrific assistant to me. He used to leak me stuff, and, they used to get copy of the draw first.
Right.
And
he used to do it, didn't he?
Yeah, he'd always send it my way.
Did he really?
And he was a calendar, mate. Calendar.
He was a calendar.
That's enough. But it was Matty in his final years kept banging on Todd Greenberg's door and said, "We've got to have a beanie for brain cancer weekend." Matty just harassed Todd and got it up.
He did.
And in partnership with the Hughes family, it's not just Mark, it's his lovely wife and the kids are up there. And as I said, mate, this is our most special weekend. We have all those other weekends. But Kenny, the legacy that Matty left behind, keeps Kenny going.
It does. It
does.
And
And
I do think of Kenny this time. I sat down with Matt. I got on great with Matt too.
Yeah,
I sat down with him only a few months before he died.
Mm.
And I remember he told me this. I actually looked up the story before I came on today, and he told me this harrowing story about how he actually had his brain operated on while he was awake.
Wow.
To try as one sort of last throw at the stumps to try
right?
and to get over it, yeah. But and he had been the driving force with Mark Hughes before he got diagnosed.
Yes.
And then he got diagnosed with it.
Yeah,
And a real and the specialist said, it's a real bad one. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yet he kept tirelessly working through.
Good on our mate Todd Greenberg too for, doesn't always get a lot of credit, Toddy Greenberg, for his, footprint he left on rugby league, and this was one of his best.
It was. Okay. Fearless forecast for this weekend, Buzz. What do you got?
You better start and I'll quickly think of one because I don't have a fearless forecast at this stage.
Good preparation.
Yes.
Hey,
you start and I'll think of one.
Thursday night, Penrith v Bulldogs, as I'm calling it, the Bee Sting Head Cup.
Yes.
I think Penrith are a good show of an upset.
Yeah.
1 to 12, $3.40. I can just see Penrith getting up for this game, and what they did against the Warriors without all those players just shows you the DNA in that club. So I'm tipping a Penrith upset. What have you got for me?
I'm going to come on board with you and Penrith, but I'm going to go a step further. And normally, history will prove it too. You cannot win an NRL competition from outside the top four. However, this year, with Canterbury in the top four, the Raiders, Storm and the Warriors, I think it's a little bit softer, that top four, than normal.
I'm with you.
And I think it's there, the gates open for, another side in the 8 to come through. And there's this Penrith side with their 5 Origin players. They're a good chance against the Doggies. And I know they had that terrible start to the year, mate. They're a chance. Impossible it sounds, 5 in a row, but I reckon you wouldn't write them off.
Well, that'd be a good story.
Wouldn't it? What way? But you see what I mean, though?
No, I agree.
There is no good thing in this comp.
No, not at all. Like, I think we were talking about it a couple of days ago just on the phone. Like, Canterbury and Canberra are the only real consistent teams in this comp at the moment. But who's to say that's going to be the case come September?
And I always worry when we got tearaway leaders like them about the peak too early factor.
Melbourne's a great example of it.
Yeah, I know. And you've got it is a Melbourne Cup, Webby. It's so cliched saying that, but you do have to build and build and build and peak in October.
It's all set up for a great, glorious Dragons run in the last sort of couple of months of the season.
Yes. Dragons?
Yes.
10 games left.
Anything could happen.
I think you've run out of buys.
That's all right. We didn't need them. We don't need them. Go the Dragons. Go Flano. Okay.
How are you going to wind us up? Come on, do something special. Throw something at us. What are you going to do?
I got nothing.
Haven't you?
Why don't you do it?
No.
You give us a big finish.
No. You're the host.
You're known for your big finishes.
You're the host.
Anyway, enough of the chip. Thanks for listening. If you're still listening, why?
Oh dear.
You can follow, subscribe, and engage with us on socials. Find us at Off the Record Podcast on Insta, and please subscribe to us on YouTube at Off the Record Podcast. Thanks, Buzzy.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, ball boys. Thank you, linesman.
Been terrific.
Good night.
See you, pal.